Hey, welcome to Ask a Doc podcast. My name is Dr. Jorge Sanchez. I am your host for today. Ask a Doc podcast was started during COVID-19 as a way to provide good quality information from a physician who is board certified to be able to answer the things that you care about. And so for today, we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about the COVID vaccine. I know that you guys are tired of hearing it, but actually I just get a lot of questions about COVID itself. And also going to talk about grief. And so there's been a lot of people who have lost loved ones and how to manage the grief. And it's kind of a downer, but also like there's hope at the same time. And so it's a very difficult conversation. And so if you hang tight and you listen to the whole podcast, I promise you're going to benefit greatly. So let's talk about the vaccine first. And so I got my first dose. That's exciting. I got my first dose of COVID and I feel fine. I feel fantastic. And so there has been some case reports of people having anaphylactic shock. And for that reason, I had to kind of stay put for about 15 minutes at a facility. And so, I've heard winds though that you can't get other vaccines within a 2-week period. So that there's apparently, if you're going to get your vaccines at these big box pharmacies and they're not tied to a hospital, that you're going to have to actually not get other vaccines about within a 2-week period before getting your COVID vaccine, and then 2 weeks after getting the COVID vaccine, you can't have any other vaccines. And so that's kind of a bummer. So, I already know one person, sadly, who has unfortunately couldn't get the vaccine because of that. But I mean, I feel great. I mean, like no fever, no muscle aches. But having said that, I'm not gonna somehow minimize the potential for there to feel bad, right? So like I anticipate within like when I get my second dose, because it's about 3 weeks separation. So I need 2 more weeks now. So I've already completed 1 week since my last vaccine. I need like 2 more weeks, and then I'm gonna get my next dose. And so like I'm gonna take the day off, like and the next day, because I kind of anticipates that I'm gonna actually not feel great. So I think there's just a lot of misconception about like, well, like I don't want to get the vaccine because it's going to make me sick. So there's the sad part is there's different kinds of sick, right? So what I explain to people is that so like when you get this vaccine first of all does not have the COVID virus. It doesn't even have the dead COVID virus. It doesn't even have like the actual particles of the COVID virus. It has like the DNA that codes for just the hairs off the surface of the COVID, and that is what we're giving you, right? So what you feel when you feel quote unquote sick is actually what it feels like to have your immune system actually get a boost, right? So I always find it interesting that people like take vitamin C to boost your immune system, but like so first of all, vitamin C doesn't work, right? So the things that actually boost your immune system that literally go from that literally ramp up your immune system, which are vaccines, that is what it feels like for your immune system to actually become healthy, is that you actually feel not great, maybe potentially fevers, muscle aches, etc. And that's what a functioning immune system looks like, because your immune system starts to say like, it's starting to, when the DNA gets injected into your cells start to actually produce the particles, the hairs off of the virus on, and then from there it's like, hey, let's ramp up, let's fight this thing. And it wins easily because there's no actual COVID. It's just just particles that are, it recognizes that it's foreign because now it's being reproduced. And that's what it feels like for an immune system boost. Okay. So in a way, that's a good thing. So right now I'm about 50% protected because I got my first dose is the Pfizer vaccine, and then I'll get my second dose. And then I'll likely will not feel great. So, but so far I feel fantastic. I don't expect to have any problems. For those who have had anaphylaxis from other vaccines, may want to I don't know. I mean, even still, it would be reasonable to get it at a hospital setting so they can monitor you and then give you epinephrine in case you do develop anaphylactic shock. But otherwise, I think it's fine, right? So let's dive into the topic of grief. There has been over 300,000 people. I've kind of almost I don't know. I've kind of almost stopped counting, but it's, you know, there's been a lot of people who have died, over 300,000 people from coronavirus. And that is more than like 9/11. It's more than the Vietnam War. This is a true tragedy that we've experienced, and it's not ending. In fact, it's going to continue to get worse. I think the vaccine has to be administered effectively to as many people as possible to try to avert that, but it's just not looking good. And I'm going to speak as someone who has lost someone as well. So back in January, and you know, I'm pretty sure I'm going to make this without crying. I think I'm pretty good because I'm in the work setting, and I don't know. When I get my doctor thing going on, I turn into somebody who manages emotions. I don't know if that's good or not, but hey, it is what it is. So, but I'm like speaking from someone who's lost my own mother, and who so my mom developed cancer. She developed cortical renal cancer of adrenal glands, and she passed away after on January 22nd. And so we were her caretakers, like my wife and I. We have 3 small kids, and we had a foster child at the time when we were taking care of her and my mother. And it was I don't know how we did it. I mean, I can't express to you the amount of stress, the amount of the griefs, and also some of the joys of being like helping someone that needs your help and closely being with somebody. So there has been such an emotional journey with that. And I would say that for those who have gone through grief and have lost someone to COVID, that it sucks. I am not going to just like sugarcoat it. It sucks. And there are times in your life when you are experiencing such painful grief that you like can't comprehend like large swaths of time. You can't comprehend even a day. You like just like moment by moment, you're just trying to get by through the day, and you can't even consider like what to do in a week or two. So I, and to compound things, there are situations where there is tremendous grief, and then with COVID, there is some grief that is really real. It's like we should not have had Thanksgiving. We should not have had Christmas. If our parents would have been here still, if that was the case. And that's so difficult. I cannot express to you the grief that occurs because the sense of responsibility. I wanted to at least mention that the responsibility, it feels like it's to the individual. I want to spread out the responsibility just a little bit. That us as a community, when college students had their parties and were not social distancing, those who don't wear masks, and also a lot of the disinformation out there, a lot of the conspiracies, etc. I want to like provide some level of collective responsibility, that it was a culmination of multiple factors, and it was not just one individual decision that led to exposure of COVID. We as a society really are much to blame, and I think that also I don't know how things could have been done differently. I think that we could have maybe said in stronger voice, say instead of like saying, hey, just be careful. I think that we could have said, hey, let's just cancel Christmas. Let's just cancel Thanksgiving. And had that come from officials, have that come from mayors, from our governor, so I don't know. Like, I mean, I think that we should have, as those who have influence, that could have provided a stronger message. I think we lost the opportunity to do that. I think the message was, it was very just kind of like, just be careful and all that. And then like, the problem is that us as humans make errors and mistakes. And, and I can't tell you, but all the times when people say like, normally I'm careful, but in this situation, we weren't. And then all of a sudden we got sick. So it is a real struggle to manage the grief from the sense of responsibility that happens. Um, there there comes a point where you kind of have to say, like, I can't I can't change the past. I mean, I can't change the past, and I have to forgive myself, and forgive others as well. I mean, maybe it was a cousin that was sick and they came to visit, and they had a little fever, and there's a lot of now blame, like casting blame onto people. When I think the focus really needs to be achieving health, and to be able to arrive to a place of be able to be okay. And unless we're able to forgive those who introduced the virus unknowingly, or maybe there was some level of neglect in doing so, whatever it may be, there has to be like a point where you like, I need to forgive them, and I forgive myself, or forgive maybe my grandparents who like refused to wear a mask, and they're the ones who were like, maybe, shared the burden of responsibility. So, there has to be a deep work within your hearts to be able to say, in order to like get better emotionally, I have to forgive. And forgiving is a choice. It's not a feeling, and it's not just a one-time thing. It's a recurring thing. The other thing that I'm gonna provide some counsel is that grief lasts for a long time. I think that for me, I mean, I think about like 8 months after my mother passed away is when I started to feel better. Like just started to feel better. And so I was in therapy. I was doing exercises. I was getting on my bike and doing exercises to help. I was doing lavender oil at nighttime, as well as reading a book to help me sleep at night. I was doing everything that I knew to like take care of myself. Sadly, tragedies happen in twos. It's like what happens to your loved one, and then what we do to ourselves in our time of grief. And the tragedy can be that we just don't take care of ourselves. Like as far as exercise and eating healthy. And so it's a deliberate decision, just like when I talked about forgiving others. It's a deliberate decision to say, I need to do everything I can to take care of myself. And there's nobody else who's going to do it for you. I have to do it for myself. And, it's difficult when there's like, you get all these requests from people, family, friends. Let me know if there's anything I can do. Let me know if there's anything that I can do. And sometimes of like, I don't know if like, sometimes I'm like, well, okay, is that genuine or not? Is like are they just saying that? And so if that's the case, then you can say like, okay, here's my list. Or if you are someone who is trying to like, you're genuine, you're like, no, I genuinely want to like ask people if there's anything I can do. You can say like, I'm helping you somehow. And I want you to tell me, what do you need right now? Like, what do you need right now? I want to help. As opposed to saying like, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. The words seem similar, but they're drastically different. And so if you are someone who's trying to support an individual who's undergoing grief, then like, please tell them like I'm going to help you. What do you need right now? And that means a world of a difference. And so the other thing is that for those who are experiencing grief, there's this sense of isolation that occurs when there may not, well, like for myself, there hadn't been a whole lot of people who had lost a parent due to cancer. There wasn't a whole lot of, so my wife and I end up having experience grief in isolation, because there's a sense of support when you have others who've gone through similar things, and you kind of see that with organizations. There's like different organizations that provide support for people who suffer from rare diseases, and so, but within your community, you may be the only one who actually understands this. And so now, and where I'm at, in Brazos County, there's a church that provides a service called Mending Hearts, to where people gather, and where they gather together who have lost loved ones, and they're kind of going through this process together what it's to living this life of without your loved one. And so, that is critical, and I wish I had known that earlier on, and I think I forgot about it or didn't take it seriously in the moment, and I kind of regret that. But being able to interact with those who've lost loved ones themselves, and we have to be creative now in being socially distant and wearing masks, etc. But I think that's very, very important as well. The other thing is that I would say allow yourself to grieve around the moments of anniversaries of the loss of a loved one, around whether it's Father's Day, Mother's Day, or your birthday or your loved one's birthday. These are very emotionally potent, difficult times for people who are going through that. And so I don't know anything else except to say that you have to allow yourself to be human. You might want to take the day off during that time. You maybe want to say, hey, I think that maybe I'm just gonna, or the opposite rather. You just stay busy, but just I don't know anything else except just be okay. I don't know how to be okay, but just know that it's human. Allow yourself to be human during these times. Just notice that that's going to happen. And I will tell you that those anniversaries become over the decades. I mean, it doesn't, it takes a long time for those anniversaries to not impact you anymore. And so, I mean, just receive prayers from people, be okay with saying hey, can you please pray for me? I just need some help. I'm really struggling. This is the anniversary of the passing of my loved one. And so those are all the things they can do. So although the medical time frame to which grief is no longer an issue is going to be about 1 year, I disagree with that. I think that grief is lifelong. And when the bad part also is that when there's multiple losses because of the same reason, like in COVID, if you lose an uncle, then you lose a cousin, and so it just reopens wounds even more deeply, and it can be difficult. And so just don't make it worse for yourself by holding on to hatred towards others. And so now, I mean, I think that I hope that this turns into some type of action. For me, one of the methods for me to overcome a lot of the grief as well is channeling a lot of that grief towards something that's positive. And so I am writing a book about cancer in hopes that others could read it and be able to benefit from that, to be able to read things of okay, these are the foods I can eat to avoid having cancer. These are some of the habits I can implement to avoid having cancer. And that and also, I mean, there's some big policy things in terms of our government that we can implement to actually reduce the overall cancer burden, and being active in and being in that regard, and actually engaging in politics. And I know it's really one of those things that people want to talk about, but to actually make change, to be educated on the things that are causing suffering and some of the policies that are in place, how to make things better in our government to actually help with solving the solutions, come up with solutions and developing policies that can help improve people's lives, so that they may not suffer the way that I have. And so writing books that others may benefit from, being a part of, eventually, right, give yourself a break, right? And so at least 1 year, allow yourself to grieve. But at some point, kind of saying that I want to channel my grief into a positive. I want to, some people, they'll go to MD Anderson and they'll volunteer, and they'll be a support staff for others who are patients who are undergoing a lot of difficulty. And so it's very important, I think, to allow your tragic experience to turn into a positive thing, to turn into something where others could benefit from. And if you have lost a loved one through COVID specifically, I think that allow yourself to grieve, start at some points to express your grief in the form of writings, journaling, blogs at some point, and maybe, like, dare I say, like, look at start learning at some point about, like, where was the things that we went wrong in our country. And that's going to take a lot of maturity, because right now during COVID, there's just a lot of emotion overall, and it's very difficult for a lot of people to actually know what's true or not. But I feel like there are things that we can do to actually improve the system to where the next time a pandemic like this happens, that, like, we know exactly how to do this, how to do it correctly, so that others may not suffer the way that we have. I'm just saying that just try to channel your energy of suffering at some point. And I kind of arbitrarily tell people at least a year, or maybe like at a year and a half, to say, like, okay, I'm ready to channel my grief into something positive, because I want to help. I want to give back to society so that others may not experience the things that I've experienced as well. And so, and that, it may not mean there to be COVID. It can be other things as well. It could be like heart disease, cancer. It can be like motor vehicle accidents. In the state of Texas, one person dies every year due to a motor vehicle accident. And sadly, there's a lot of like reflex solutions. Like, well, if only people stop like getting on their cell phones, if only people would pay attention when they're driving, they would not have veered into my loved one's lane, and then they would have still be here. So sadly, there's a lot of like reflex easy solutions. There's like something called Net Zero. There's an organization out there that actually knows solutions to our traffic issues, to where we can actually start saving lives and improve our transportation, and things that our Texas government actually knows, but because they're afraid of spending money on cost on things, they don't implement. And so Net Zero is an organization in Texas that's really striving to change policies in Texas that would allow for the goal where not a single person would die on the roads here in the state. And so there are deeper solutions that can improve our societal problems, except that there's just not enough people who are willing to go deep as to what are the issues, the true issues, the root problems, and what are some really deep-rooted policies that can really help. And so it takes a lot of reading and investigation, and it just takes a lot of sometimes it's just too much for people to say, like, I'm not ready now for that. I'm really not ready. But at some point, it's another situation is I know of a story of someone who lost a child due to the intercoli hemorrhagic disease. So EHEC, that's EHEC. So it's a disease that occurs when eating undercooked meats, and there has been some cases in the past where children had died. And then the parent went into the politics of, like, what permitted and allowed for the food industry to get away with not providing quality meats that was unsafe, or whether it's restaurants, or where was it along the food supply chain that resulted in the death of my loved one. And it will be surprising that fighting against those things can be also remedies a lot of the internal grief that we experience. And so I think that there's not enough people who channel their I'm not opposed to, like, things like just getting into arts, getting into drawings, and getting into gardening, and all those things I think are helpful. I hope to offer at least the opportunity to those to channel the energy to, like, better society, so that others may not experience the same thing that we have. So, and I think that's about it for about the topic of grief. And so if you want to download the Medici app, that's MEDICI, and send me text messages if you want to make an appointment and say, hey, I want to visit, I have something to ask you medically, be sure to do so. So that's the Medici app, MEDICI, and you can download it anything. Be sure to visit, if we're on YouTube, be sure to send me some likes. Be sure to share with others. I really appreciate every time people share my content and to give me thumbs up, because it really helps out the channel. And I really hope to be able to help as many people as possible. So spread the word, Ask a Doc podcast, and hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you later.